The history of Coco Chanel. Coco Chanel is one of the most influential fashion designers of the 20th century. She stormed the women's clothing world with her daring style, and her mark on the fashion world endures. Who doesn't recognize her classic designs, such as her little black dress? This video explains how she reached worldwide recognition as a French modernist designer. Today, Chanel is synonymous with high-end fashion, but its designer, Coco Chanel, had a gloomy and difficult childhood. Faced with challenges in her early life, Chanel wanted to make her mark on the world and enter high society. She began her career on stage, where she adopted the stage name Coco, and later became a milliner, in other words, a hat maker. Gabrielle Bonheur Chanel was born in Saumur, France on August 19, 1883. Her formative years were far from glamorous. Chanel had a large family. She was one of 6 and had 3 sisters and 2 brothers. Her family moved from one village to another until they settled in Brive-la-Gaillarde, a bustling market town located in the Corrèze region of France, where they lived in a one-room house. When Chanel was 12 years old, her mother passed away from tuberculosis. When her mother died, Chanel's father, a peddler, didn't know how to take care of his 6 children. He tried to leave the children in the care of their grandparents, but the grandparents refused. So Chanel had to live in an orphanage with her sisters, while her 2 brothers lived with farmers. Chanel was put in the care of the nuns at the Abbey of Aubazine-Corrèze. While living there, she learned how to sew, embroider, and iron, skills that eventually led to her life's work. At 18, Chanel left Aubazine to live on her own. She pursued 2 careers, both of which would serve her well later. She started as a salesperson in the Maison Grand-Père shop in Moulins, and she sang in a cafe. One of her signature songs, Qui Cavu Coco, provided her famed nickname, Coco. She said the name was a shortened version of cocotte, the French phrase meaning kept woman. As time passed, the same cafes in Moulins led to her exposure and meeting with a notable fashion executive named Etienne de Belsan. The son of textile business owners, he asked her to move to a castle in Royal Liu. This was an important step in her career. Following a 6-year courtship, Etienne eventually became not only her loving companion, but also her source of financial support. At that time, she had already begun selling her first hats to affluent ladies who lived on the ground floor of Balsan's apartment, creating a name for herself thanks to her talent and particular casual yet exquisite style. In 1910, Chanel moved to Paris with Arthur Boy Capel, Balsan's polo-playing colleague. In the same year, she opened her first store in Paris, which was called Chanel Moderne. Both Balsan and Capel helped her open the store. Chanel's first store, located on the Rue Gambon in Paris, sold hats. When these proved to be successful, Chanel decided to broaden her business. She started expanding into other areas of fashion to the great satisfaction of her existing customers. Within a short time, her fashion house caught Paris's public eye. Many women loved her new style. It was relaxed yet elegant. Fashionistas preferred her style to the bell-shaped and overloaded style prevalent during the Belle Epoque. Surprisingly, the dress that led to her success was made from an old jersey. When she later described that dress, she recalled that her money was built on that old jersey that she'd made just because it was cold in Deauville. Not all was roses and champagne for Chanel. Her business life was booming, but her personal life was not. Capel, her lover, left her for another woman, an aristocrat, whom he married in 1919. But Chanel remained determined to impact the fashion world. After World War I ended, she moved to the Hotel Ritz and devoted herself to running her business. Chanel's designs and sense of style were featured in newspapers and magazines worldwide, leading to its rapid expansion. She invented and developed new styles for the modern, elegant, liberated woman, due to the recognition that she had achieved. She sold several new styles of clothing: short skirts, Scottish tweed costume jewelry, female pants, round-toe shoes, beach pajamas, and her distinctive purse with golden chains. In Paris, Chanel found success, both in business and her love life. She reopened her fashion house with the help of her new lover, Duke Pierre Wertheimer, who provided financial backing. With his help, she developed her first signature product, a perfume that I'm sure you'll recognize, Chanel No. 5. Chanel No. 5 was the first perfume to bear the name of a fashion designer when it was introduced in 1921. Chanel famously said that the perfume is the unseen, memorable, ultimate accessory of fashion. It signals your entrance and prolongs your departure. In addition to Pierre, others financially backed Chanel, the owner of a department shop named Théophile Bader, and Pierre's brother, Paul Wertheimer. A deal was reached in which Bader would receive 20% of the revenues from Chanel No. 5, while the Wertheimer enterprise would take in 70% of the profits. Chanel herself received only 10%. Doesn't that seem like a bad deal for Chanel? Chanel thought so, and later regretted the deal. Over the years, when No. 5 became such a major source of revenue, she continually fought to have the terms of the deal renegotiated. However, the Wertheimers remain in control of the perfume company, even today. But Chanel had success beyond perfume. In 1923, at a dinner party in Monte Carlo, Coco Chanel met Hugh Bendo Grosvenor, the second Duke of Westminster, one of the wealthiest men at the time. Even though the Duke was still legally married to Violet Mary Nelson, his second wife, he sought Chanel for months before their 5-year-long affair started. Duke introduced Chanel to a number of his friends, including his close friend Winston Churchill, a friendship that would serve Chanel well during World War II. Duke's sportswear and menswear, particularly his tweed hunting jackets, inspired Chanel's subsequent creation, the Chanel tweed suit for ladies. In 1925, Chanel launched the now iconic Chanel suit, which included a jacket without a collar and a fitted skirt. Her designs were ahead of their time. She took clues from men's clothing and placed a greater emphasis on comfort than what was typically prevalent as fashions at the time. She was instrumental in getting ladies out of restrictive apparel like corsets and other clothing of that era. Yet Chanel still had many issues in her business that were common at the time. In 1929, when the financial crisis on Wall Street began, Chanel had to cut several staff and other expenses. Despite these efforts, her business crumbled. She moved to North America to try to rebound. She operated as a fashion designer for Hollywood stars, with the assistance of producer Samuel Goldwyn. Chanel created some exquisite and flowing costumes, but they didn't blend well with Hollywood fashion. Chanel never again served as a fashion designer in Hollywood. Even though Chanel's designs weren't successful in Hollywood, they were well received in French films. When Chanel's romance with Bendo, the second Duke of Westminster, ended, she started dating French illustrator and decorative artist Paul Iribe in 1931. At that time, her business had expanded, and by 1935 she had recruited more than 4,000 employees. With those employees, she built an empire. Chanel and Iribe were intimately connected until Iribe died in 1935, when Chanel saw him collapse and die at her vacation house, La Pausa. When World War II broke out in 1939, Chanel shut her couture house shops. She fired her employees and closed all of her businesses. It wasn't the best period for fashion during the war. Only the store on 31 Rue Cambon remains open, selling perfumes and accessories to German soldiers. As the Germans invaded France, most Parisians fled. Therefore, it was odd that Coco decided to stay in an occupied city and reside in the Hotel Ritz, where German military men had relocated. Eventually, Chanel began an affair and moved in with Baron Hans Gunther von Dinklage, a high-ranking German attaché at the German embassy in Paris, who was 13 years younger than her. The French Secret Service gathered files on everybody during the war, including famous persons they thought to be suspicious. Around 1945, Chanel was even detained and questioned. The declassified documents state that Chanel operated under the alias Abwehr Agent F7124, codename Westminster, a reference to the 5 years she spent having an affair with Britain's Duke of Westminster. Chanel was fortunate to have high-ranking acquaintances. Churchill, a close friend of her ex, the second Duke of Westminster, intervened and ordered Chanel's release. Chanel's highly publicized affair with the Nazi officer led her to move to Switzerland. She also spent some time in the rural house she owned in Roquebrune. But Chanel decided she could not simply stand by and see the popularity of Christian Dior, whose new look dominated in the post-war period when she still had so many ideas. While many people liked Dior's celebration of femininity with voluminous skirts and nipped-in waists, Chanel felt that his designs were neither modern nor appropriate for the liberated women who had overcome the war by taking on active societal roles. So Chanel decided to once again revitalize women's fashion. Chanel made a successful comeback to the fashion industry in 1954 when she was 70. It was not easy for her. She faced several obstacles, including securing financing, establishing a new crew, searching for new materials, facing her old faults and fears, and competing against a younger breed of designers at 70 years old. She was initially met with blistering criticism from the fashion industry's elite, but her girly and relaxed-fitting designs quickly won over customers worldwide. Her resurgence propelled her back into the upper class of haute couture. Once again, women wanted her clothes, including the now iconic Chanel suit. She was also the first to introduce a woman's pea jacket and bell-bottom pant look. In addition to her work in prominent fashion, Coco Chanel made costumes for the theatre, including Cocteau's Antigone and Oedipus Rex, as well as cinematic costumes for some films, including Renoir's Les Règles de Jeu. She continued to manage her company until the day she passed away, even while suffering from illness and otherwise deteriorating health. Chanel passed away on January 10, 1971, at Hotel Ritz, where she had resided for over 3 decades. Surprisingly, she never married, as she said, "I never wanted to weigh more heavily on a guy than a bird." At the Chapel of the Madeleine, hundreds of people gathered to say their final goodbyes to the style icon. As a mark of respect, many mourners wore Chanel suits. When she passed away, Chanel was said to have a net worth of $15 billion. And even though her career was not without its challenges, her place in the history of the fashion world is unmatched. Karl Lagerfeld, a German fashion designer, took over the helm of the company 10 years after she passed away in order to carry on the Chanel heritage. As the industry's creative director, he oversaw all aspects of Chanel's operations until he passed away on February 19, 2019. Virginie Viard, who had worked alongside Karl Lagerfeld for over 3 decades, took his place as creative director. Currently, Chanel remains a privately owned firm by the Wertheimer family and continues to be very successful. There you have it, the history of Coco Chanel. That'll be all for today's video. Thanks for staying tuned. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can always get to watch more amazing videos like this. See you in the next video. Bye.